The approach to the Volga in the high summer of 1942 was a descent into a new kind of hell. The German 6th Army, the spearhead of Operation Blau, advanced across the vast, arid steppes of southern Russia, their confidence buoyed by a string of victories. They were a relentless, mechanized force, leaving plumes of dust that choked the air and stained the green-grey uniforms a ghostly beige. For the soldiers gazing from the hatches of their panzers, the seemingly endless horizon promised a swift conclusion to the campaign. The capture of Stalingrad, the city that bore the Soviet leader's name, was seen not just as a strategic objective to sever Soviet supply lines on the Volga, but as a symbolic coup that would break the enemy's spirit. The Luftwaffe's preliminary bombing on 23rd August created an inferno so vast it was said one could read a newspaper by its light from 50 miles away. Tens of thousands of civilians perished in the initial cataclysm, the cityscape transforming into a jagged, skeletal ruin. The Volga itself seemed to burn, the water slick with oil from shattered storage tanks. This was the intended death blow, a display of German martial prowess meant to terrify the defenders into submission before the first infantrymen even set foot in the outskirts. Yet, within the smoldering chaos, a grim and unyielding resolve was crystallizing. The Soviet defenders, a desperate amalgamation of the 62nd Army under the soon-to-be legendary WW2 Chuikov and a motley collection of workers' militias, NKVD troops, and even hastily conscripted civilians, understood there was no further retreat. The wide, merciless expanse of the Volga at their backs was not an escape route, but a final barrier. To cross it meant either victory or annihilation. This stark reality forged a new doctrine of combat, born not from textbook strategy, but from the brutal geometry of the rubble. Chuikov, recognizing the futility of conventional defense against German air and artillery supremacy, issued a simple, brutal order: hug the enemy. His men were to stay so close to the German lines that Stuka dive bombers and artillery spotters would be rendered useless, fearful of hitting their own. This gave birth to the concept of the kessel or cauldron. But on a micro scale, every factory, every shattered apartment block, every pile of rubble became its own tiny, besieged fortress. Thus began the Battle of the Rats, a conflict measured not in miles, but in meters, not in days, but in the possession of a single room, a staircase, a corridor. The world came to know the names of these places as bywords for slaughter: the Red October Factory, the Barricade Arms Plant, the Grain Elevator, and Pavlov's house. The fighting was intimate, primal, and merciless. Squads of Soviet soldiers, often cut off from command and supply, learned to navigate the labyrinth of ruins, moving through sewer pipes, basements, and shell holes. They wielded the PP-41 submachine gun, perfect for close-quarters carnage, and became masters of the sniper's art, where patience and a single bullet could decide a day's battle. The most famous of them, Vasily Zaitsev, a shepherd from the Urals, became a national hero. His duel with the head of the German sniper school a propaganda legend that electrified the Soviet Union and demoralized the invaders. For the German soldier, the Lanza, this was a nightmare inversion of the blitzkrieg they had mastered. Their tactical superiority in open country meant nothing here. Every shadow in a ruined factory hall could conceal a death. Every advance through a street cost a dozen lives for a few yards of rubble, and the constant, grinding strain of close combat eroded their nerves into shattered remnants. As the autumn of 1940 to deepened into a bitter, premonitory cold, the strategic picture began to shift in a way invisible to the men dying in the ruins. While the Sixth Army's commander, Frederick Paulus, and his staff were fixated on the meter-by-meter struggle within the city, the Soviet High Command, the Stavka, was orchestrating a masterstroke. Under the supervision of Generals Chuikov and Vasilevsky, a massive force was being assembled with meticulous secrecy on the flanks of the Stalingrad salient. Here, far from the urban meat grinder, the Romanian armies, poorly equipped and lacking the anti-tank capability of their German allies, held the line. The Soviets understood that the German obsession with the city had made them strategically blind. On 19th November, the silence of the frozen steppe was shattered by a thunderous, earth-shaking roar. Operation Uranus, a massive, two-pronged Soviet offensive, exploded against the overstretched and vulnerable Romanian positions. The effect was catastrophic. The flanks crumbled within days, and like a colossal pair of pincers, the Soviet tank columns met at the town of Kalich, 60 miles west of Stalingrad, on 23rd November. In a single, stunning maneuver, the entire German Sixth Army, along with elements of the 4th Panzer Army, over 250,000 men, was trapped in a gigantic pocket, or kessel. Inside the cauldron, the reality of their situation dawned with a slow, chilling horror. The confident army that had sought to conquer the city was now its prisoner. Adolf Hitler's response was immediate and inflexible. The Sixth Army will stand fast. I will not leave the Volga. He declared the fortress would be supplied by air until a relief operation could break through. It was a promise built on fantasy. The Luftwaffe, commanded by Hermann Göring, boasted it could deliver the necessary 300 tons of supplies daily. But this was a logistical impossibility, especially with the onset of the Russian winter. The few aircraft that braved the savage Soviet anti-aircraft fire and fighters, the Ratas that patrolled the air bridge, brought a trickle of food, fuel, and ammunition, often landing with the wrong supplies entirely. Rations were slivered to the point of starvation. Soldiers burned furniture for warmth, their fuel exhausted. Horses, the backbone of German logistics, were slaughtered for meat. Frostbite, typhus, and dysentery became as deadly as Soviet bullets. The once proud Sixth Army was reduced to a shivering, starving horde, clinging to life in a frozen, hellish landscape. Outside the ring, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein launched Operation Winterstorm in a desperate attempt to break the siege. His spearhead, led by General Hoth, came within 30 miles of the pocket, close enough for the besieged troops to see the flares of the relief force at night. But Paulus, bound by Hitler's stand-fast order and lacking the fuel for a breakout attempt, did not move to link up. The moment passed. The Soviet forces, now overwhelming in number and confidence, reinforced the Iron Ring, driving Hoth back and sealing the fate of the Sixth Army. The final act was one of utter degradation. In January 1943, the Soviets launched Operation Ring to systematically crush the pocket. They compressed the Germans into an ever-shrinking space, a wasteland of frozen corpses and shattered equipment. The last airfield fell, cutting the final, tenuous link to the outside world. On 31st January, Paulus, newly promoted to Field Marshal by Hitler in a transparent hint that he should commit suicide, as no German Field Marshal had ever surrendered, was captured in his headquarters in the basement of the Univermag department store. The last northern pocket surrendered on 2nd February 1943. The silence that fell over Stalingrad was deafening. The aftermath was a world transformed. Of the approximately 300,000 Germans encircled, only around 91,000 haggard, frost-bitten prisoners remained to shuffle into a brutal captivity. Fewer than 6,000 would ever see Germany again. The total Axis casualties, including the Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian allies, numbered well over 800,000. Soviet losses were even more staggering, estimated at over 1.1 million soldiers, a testament to the unimaginable price they were willing to pay for victory. But the strategic and psychological impact was absolute. The myth of German invincibility on the Eastern Front was not just broken, it was annihilated in the ruins of Stalingrad. The Wehrmacht had suffered a catastrophic defeat from which it would never fully recover, losing an entire army and its aura of invulnerability. For the Soviet Union, the victory was a national resurrection, a testament to their resilience and a justification for their immense sacrifice. It was the Red Army's finest hour, proving it could not only withstand the German war machine, but could outthink and destroy it. The initiative on the Eastern Front had irrevocably passed to the Soviets. From the banks of the Volga, the long, bloody road to Berlin began, a road paved with the lessons of ruin and forged to the fire of Stalingrad, the undeniable turning point of the war in the East.